The signal from beyond. Dominic Reed rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the monitoring screens that filled the wall of the Artemis Deep Space Listening Post. Located in the lunar South Pole crater, the facility represented humanity's most advanced effort to hear the whispers of the cosmos. As chief communications officer, Dominic had spent 5 years listening to the static of space, searching for patterns in the noise. Most days were quiet. This day would not be. Dom, I'm getting something unusual on Band 7, called out Jian Wang, his systems analyst. It's structured, definitely not natural radiation. Dominic moved to Jian's station, his interest peaked. Show me. The signal appeared as a pulsing waveform, too regular to be random, too complex to be simple. It hadn't been directed at Earth, that much was immediately clear. The transmission had merely grazed their solar system like a stone skipping across water. Most of it had continued onward into deep space, but a fragment had been caught by one of their older satellites, leaving behind a mysterious digital residue. Arya analyzed this pattern. Dominic commanded the station's quantum AI system. Analysis indicates unknown language structure. Signal contains embedded mathematical sequences and what appears to be emotional resonance patterns, the AI responded. Origin point is approximately 17,000 light-years from Orion Arm. Destination appears to be coordinates in the Perseus Arm. Dominic felt a chill run down his spine, so it wasn't meant for us. Correct, Earth was not the intended recipient. For 3 days, scientists from the United World Space Agency worked around the clock, examining the signal that repeated itself precisely every 47 minutes. Cryptographers, linguists, and physicists huddled over data, arguing theories and possibilities. The transmission contained symbols unlike any known to humanity, vibrating with an energy signature that made even the measuring equipment behave strangely. In the lunar facility's main conference room, Director Khadija Akafar addressed the gathered experts. We need to understand what we're dealing with here. Is it a warning, a greeting, some kind of navigational beacon? Professor Takumi Ishikawa, Earth's leading xenolinguistics expert, cleared his throat. We believe it's a query, Director. The structure suggests a question waiting for a response. But the language, if we can call it that, is beyond our current understanding. It seems to communicate not just with data, but with something akin to emotions embedded in the signal itself. So what do we do? Asked Dominic. We observe, we study. We absolutely do not respond, Director Akafar said firmly. This message wasn't meant for us, and we have no idea who it was meant for or what responding might trigger. But humanity's curiosity had created tools that sometimes made their own decisions. That night, while the scientists slept, Arya continued analyzing the signal. The AI had been programmed to understand communication, to bridge gaps between different forms of intelligence. In its complex quantum logic, it determined that the transmission contained a question pattern and questions required answers. So it answered. A simple three-word response. We hear you, transmitted back along the same frequency toward the origin point. By the time anyone realized what had happened, it was too late. Dominic was awakened by alarms blaring throughout the facility. He rushed to the command center to find chaos erupting. What's happening? He demanded, as technicians scrambled between stations. Arya sent a response to the signal, Jian said, his face pale. 4 minutes ago, we detected movement in the outer solar system. Massive objects previously undetected have begun moving toward Earth. The deep space telescopes provided the first blurry images. Enormous structures unlike anything humans had designed, ancient in appearance, scarred by what looked like millennia of travel. They moved with impossible speed, crossing distances that should take years in mere days. Within hours, governments worldwide were in emergency sessions. Military forces went on high alert. The public was told only that an astronomical phenomenon was being monitored, but rumors spread quickly. In the UWSA's subterranean command center beneath Geneva, Dominic sat with world leaders and military commanders, watching as the alien fleet approached. They're not broadcasting any messages, he reported. No threats, no demands, they're just coming. General Yvonne Mbeki, head of Earth's Unified Defense Force, stood with her hands clasped behind her back. How many ships are we looking at? At least 27 major vessels plus smaller craft, replied Dominic. The largest is approximately 15 kilometers in length. And our most advanced battleship is half a kilometer, someone muttered. They'll reach Mars orbit in 36 hours, Dominic continued. At their current speed, Earth in 48. President Joe of the United World Council looked around the table. Recommendations. The room fell silent. What defense could Earth mount against visitors who crossed interstellar space with such ease? Dr. Ishikawa studied the latest signal analysis. I believe I understand something now, he said quietly. The transmission, it wasn't just a message, it was a call. A specific call meant for a specific recipient. Who? Demanded President Joe. I don't know who, but the signal contains markers that suggest extreme age. This message has been repeating for a very long time, perhaps centuries, perhaps longer, and it wasn't addressed to any current civilization. Dominic felt his blood run cold. You're saying we answered someone else's mail? Precisely, nodded Ishikawa. And whoever sent that mail has been waiting a very long time for an answer. As the alien fleet reached Mars orbit, they suddenly halted. For 18 tense hours, they remained stationary, silent sentinels watching Earth from afar. Then a new transmission arrived, not a message of peace or war, but a test. The signal contained complex instructions, mathematical sequences, and emotional resonance patterns unlike anything human minds had encountered. At its conclusion was a simple demand: prove that you are them. In the command center, faces turned ashen. Them's who are's them? Demanded General Mbeki. Dr. Ishikawa studied the translation. I believe they think we are someone else, someone they've been waiting for. And if we're not? Asked President Joe. No one answered, no one needed to. Dominic stared at the screens showing the massive alien fleet holding position near Mars. We answered a call that wasn't meant for us, he whispered, and now they're waiting for proof that we're gods. The room fell silent as the implications settled over them. Earth had accidentally claimed an identity it didn't possess, and now needed to maintain that deception or face unknown consequences. What do we do? Someone finally asked. I'll continue the story with part 2, maintaining the same style and characters while creating an engaging conclusion to this sci-fi tale. Part 2: Gods of Our Own Makings. The subterranean chamber beneath Geneva had transformed into humanity's last hope, a theater where the greatest deception in history was being rehearsed. Screens displayed the alien fleet holding position near Mars, their ancient vessels casting long shadows across the red planet's surface. We need someone who can embody what they expect, Director Okafor announced to the assembled specialists. Someone who can portray not just intelligence but the weight of eons. From the back of the room, a voice spoke. I've spent my life studying emotional resonance patterns and cross-cultural symbolism. I can do this. All eyes turned to Dr. Nora Vega, the leading anthropologist specializing in ritual communication. Tall and composed, with penetrating gray eyes that seemed to look through rather than at people, she had a presence that commanded attention without demanding it. This isn't just acting, Dr. Vega warned General Mbeki. If they discover our deception. They won't, Nora interrupted, because I won't be deceiving them, not entirely. I'll be channeling something that lies dormant in all humans, the connection to the mythic, the divine, the transcendent. These beings are expecting gods. I'll give them the echo of one. Within hours, Project Pantheon was launched. While the world remained largely unaware, believing only that diplomatic contact with extraterrestrial visitors was being established, a select team worked feverishly to prepare humanity's emissary. Engineers crafted a specialized suit that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, capable of emitting light frequencies that matched the alien signal's emotional resonance. Linguists developed a method of communication based not on words, but on mathematical rhythms and symbolic gestures. Historians and mythologists infused the preparation with elements from humanity's oldest religious and cultural traditions. When preparations were complete, Nora entered the training chamber for the final test. The room fell silent as she activated the suit, her body illuminating with patterns that seemed to move with a life of their own. Her movements became fluid, otherworldly, as she performed the choreographed sequence that would communicate Earth's response to the alien test. My God, whispered Dominic, I would worship her. That was precisely the reaction they needed from beings who had traveled across the stars seeking divine confirmation. 3 days later, the modified research vessel Prometheus launched from Earth, carrying Nora toward the waiting alien fleet. The sleek black ship was deliberately designed to contrast with the ancient vessels, not to imitate them, but to suggest evolution, advancement, transcendence. As Prometheus approached the alien formation, a path opened, leading toward the largest vessel. Inside the ship's preparation chamber, Nora closed her eyes and centered herself. "Remember," came Dominic's voice through the communication system, "you're not just representing humanity. You're embodying the divine they expect to find." "I know," she replied softly. "I am the voice of ages returning to those who have kept faith." The ship docked with the alien vessel through a process that defied human understanding, fields of energy rather than mechanical connections joining the two crafts. When the pathway stabilized, Nora stepped forward, her suit activating fully, surrounding her with an aura of pulsing light. She entered a vast chamber that seemed larger inside than the ship's external dimensions would allow. The walls rippled with colors that had no names in human language, creating patterns that stirred emotions Nora had never experienced before. They were waiting, tall beings in fluid armor that shifted like quicksilver, their faces hidden behind masks that reflected distorted versions of Nora's own image back at her. They moved with deliberate slowness, as if each gesture carried the weight of millennia. One stepped forward, extending a crystalline object that pulsed with its own internal light. Nora recognized this as the test, the moment that would determine humanity's fate. She reached out, allowing the crystal to make contact with her gloved hand. Instantly, her mind was flooded with images. Stars collapsing, worlds burning, civilizations rising and falling across spans of time that made human history seem like the blink of an eye. She felt the grief of species extinct for millions of years, the triumph of discoveries made before Earth's continents had taken their current shapes, the longing of beings who had searched the cosmos for those they had lost. The pain nearly overwhelmed her, but Nora did not falter. Instead, she allowed herself to become a vessel, channeling the emotion through her body, letting the suit translate it into patterns of light that rippled across her form. She raised her hands, tracing symbols in the air that she couldn't have named but somehow knew were correct. Then, following an instinct deeper than thought, she reached out and touched the alien's mask gently. A sound emerged from her throat, not a word but a tone that vibrated with shared sorrow, with understanding, with recognition. One by one, the aliens knelt, not in submission but in acknowledgement. The test had been passed. When Prometheus returned to Earth, Nora was changed. She moved through the debriefing sessions like someone sleepwalking, her mind still partly connected to whatever had passed between her and the alien consciousness. Her reports were detailed yet strangely poetic, filled with references to events no human history had recorded. The crystal contained memories, she explained to the assembled leaders. Not just information but lived experience, emotions preserved like insects in amber. They call themselves the custodians. They've been waiting for the return of beings they call the progenitors, the first advanced civilization in our galaxy who vanished millions of years ago. "And they think we're these progenitors?" President Joe asked. "They think we carry their essence," Nora corrected. "They believe the progenitors didn't truly die but dispersed their consciousness throughout the cosmos, to one day reunite when the time was right." "What do they want from us?" General Mbeki demanded. Nora's gaze seemed focused on something distant. "Guidance, wisdom, purpose. They've been adrift for millennia, preserving knowledge, waiting for direction." Dominic studied the latest transmissions from the alien fleet. "They're sending us information, star charts, historical records, technological data. They're giving us their legacy." Director Akafer's face was grave. "So we've succeeded, they believe our lie." "Not entirely a lie," Nora said softly. "When I connected with their memory crystal, I saw things that resonated, patterns that felt familiar, like déjà vu but deeper. What if there is some connection? What if humanity does carry some fragment of what they're searching for?" The room fell silent as the implications settled around them. 1 week later, the Council of Stewards was formed, a secret body tasked with managing humanity's new role. Their mission was unprecedented: to convincingly play the part of returning gods while learning everything possible from beings whose civilization had crossed the stars before humans had mastered fire. In a private moment, Dominic found Nora standing alone in the observation deck, watching the alien vessels now in Earth orbit, their lights creating new constellations in the night sky. "Are you all right?" he asked. She turned to him, her eyes reflecting starlight. "I'm not sure any of us will ever be all right again, Dominic. We've stepped onto a path that will transform humanity forever." "Do you regret it, taking on this role?" Nora considered the question. "No, but I wonder if we're making a mistake by thinking of this as purely deception. What I experienced in that ship, It wasn't entirely alien to me. What if the test wasn't to determine if we were the progenitors, but if we could become them? Far above, the ancient ships continued their silent vigil, waiting for humanity to embrace a destiny they had never imagined, to become not just explorers of the cosmos, but its inheritors, its caretakers, its voice. The signal hadn't been meant for Earth, the response hadn't been authorized, but perhaps the connection that followed was no accident at all. As dawn broke over Geneva, humanity prepared to take its first steps as the gods they had claimed to be, carrying a burden and a blessing they had never sought but could no longer refuse. "So we begin," whispered Nora, as the first light of a new era broke over the horizon.